What's good, y'all? It's your boy Mixtape Moth. And I know I'm a little late on this topic, but I wanted to hit y'all with my thoughts on it. So a couple of days ago, Conway, the Machine, went on social media to express his displeasure and frustrations with New York radio, particularly Funkmaster Flex, who he regarded as an out-of-touch gatekeeper. But before I go any further, I want to state that Funkmaster Flex is a hip-hop legend. You can love him, hate him, find him to be corny or whatever, but you can't discount the work that he has put into hip hop culture since the early 90s. And I own the Funkmaster Flex mixtape albums from the mid to late 90s, so I know the impact that they had. Now, Conway and Griselda, who I also have a lot of respect for, have had some tension with Funkmaster Flex dating back to the first time they appeared on his show to freestyle, so that likely played a role into Conway's most recent feelings regarding Flex. But Conway has accused Funkmaster Flex of being the reason that real New York rap isn't played on the radio, and that DJs like Flex and Sus One are intentionally suppressing up-and-coming East Coast lyricists from getting any radio burn. That being said, I do know that on Hot 97, Peter Rosenberg always makes it a point to show love to the underground. He even has the Real Late Show with Peter Rosenberg specifically for that. And yes, Conway, it is true that Funkmaster Flex devotes much of his attention to younger, up-and-coming drill rappers. That isn't likely gonna resonate with traditional hip-hop fans, but it is a sign of the time and where the youth is at right now, right or wrong. So I feel this argument from Conway is actually an old one. And it somewhat reminds me of Nas's hip hop is dead rhetoric from the mid 2000s, which at the time I kind of supported, even though I thought he had somewhat of an elitist view on things. And it could also have been looked at as a shot at Southern hip hop. Now, Nas is my favorite rapper of all time, but I didn't entirely buy into his whole logic back then, and I'm not really buying into Conway's in 2022 either, respectfully, because there's always going to be dope hip hop out there, regardless of whether the radio plays it or not. But I get the sense here with this Conway situation that he would like some of the mainstream recognition that street groups like the Locks, Capone Noriega, and Mobb Deep got back in the 90s and 2000s. He's not coming out and saying that specifically, but that's what I think he really wants. And you know what? I totally get and understand Conway's desire for that type of recognition from the radio, or even that sort of acknowledgement from the average street or hood dude. It would be a dope thing if DJ Clue still made monthly mixtapes where, you know, Griselda would have their exclusive songs and freestyles. I've always considered Griselda to be the closest modern day equivalent to acts like the Locks, Mobb Deep, and the Wu. But we also have to understand that a lot has changed since the 2000s, and there are different metrics now in place to measure an artist's success and popularity. You know, the radio, the club, and the mixtapes no longer solely dictate what is popping. The radio doesn't really break artists anymore, and many folks don't even listen to the radio that much in general. A lot of listeners today find out about new artists through platforms like YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, SoundCloud, TikTok, and streaming services. Now, Conway and Griselda still managed to have a meteoric rise in the underground and through the internet without having to rely on the radio one bit. Griselda has successfully built an immense following the grassroots way without the initial big platform cosigns, and they did it all without Flex in his damn radio show. And over the last 2 years, I have to point out that Griselda has received quite a bit of industry love. and attention from some of the biggest commercial artists in the game. And we all know about those huge Griselda features that they had this past year. But I've always thought it was a little strange how Griselda's industry cosigns never entirely trickle down to what the average street cat or what the average youth listens to. It's like Griselda is famous in the underground and they're somewhat famous in the industry and on the internet, but not with the streets or with the youth. It's kind of been puzzling. I guarantee you 9 times out of 10 that if you go into any hood in the United States and you hear what younger people are playing from their cars, it's not going to be Griselda. It's more likely to be Pop Smoke, Fabio Foreign, Lil Durk, and Moneybagg Yo. Would I like if they were blasting Griselda? Hell yeah, but they aren't, and that's totally okay. But I think it's probably annoying Conway just slightly. I'm not trying to speak for him, but that's just the sense that I get. It always seemed like a weird disconnect to me, considering the content that Griselda makes is so closely associated with trap music, but the trap dudes aren't listening to Griselda. Regardless though, I really think that what Griselda has done and what they are doing now is inspirational and great, and that they should be happy with their respect and the successes they have received and the continued successes that they're going to have. But if Conway wants a little more recognition, which on some level I can get it, I understand it, I think he's going to need to change up his approach a little bit, maybe become more of what he might want to attract. Like the old phrase goes, you can't be mad at the ocean, you gotta learn how to surf. I might be butchering it, but you know what I'm getting at. I think that if Conway would want to get his voice heard on the radio more, or the voices of other artists of his caliber, then he might want to consider making those commercial bangers every now and then, kind of like the Lobby Boys and Fabio Foreign did with Slide, because a joint like that would almost guarantee to get him some radio play. So obviously Conway is entitled to his own opinion, and on some level I get his frustration coming from someone who remembers the days when street artists or lyrical artists would get played on the radio, but that was such a long time ago. That was such a different era. But I do not think that he should be really mad at the radio now, since Conway has not made it a point in his career thus far to really make the kind of songs that are geared for the radio anyway. I mean, I could see if Conway was making albums with turn up music and the radio still didn't play him. Well, damn, at that point then, you could say Funk Flex is hating, but Conway hasn't really attempted to make those albums. And I also think that we should not ignore the elephant in the room. And that is, unfortunately, that traditional lyricism is not widely embraced by the youth anymore like it was in the 90s, in the early 2000s. It's just not, for the most part, and I don't think that we can blame radio entirely for that. Maybe the radio bears some responsibility, especially back in the hip hop is dead era, but the blame solely doesn't rest with them. It's really a lot of factors, but that would kind of be exhausting to go into, and it's very broad. Thankfully though, the underground is going to continue to thrive and prosper as they always have, without the assistance from Hot 97 and commercial recognition. But getting right back to this reality of the youth not really embracing lyrical hip hop as much. I first learned about this when I became an educator back in the late 2000s. I learned pretty quickly how the kids' musical tastes had shifted drastically from what I remember them to be in the 90s and 2000s. In my early days of teaching, the kids were listening to a lot of Wayne, a lot of Gucci, a lot of Boosie. Then they gravitated to Chief Keef, Lil Reese, Lil Durk, the whole Chicago drill scene, Bobby Shmurda. Then it was the 21 Savages, the Futures, followed by Pop Smoke, Lil Baby, DaBaby, Lil Durk, Moneybagg Yo, the whole Atlanta trap scene, the whole Memphis trap scene, and now, of course, the drill scene that took over New York City. That's just the reality of what the youth has been primarily listening to for the last 15 years or so. I'm not saying that there aren't some kids who like, Kendrick, Cole, Joey Badass, Shay Nor, Ransom, but they aren't in the majority. So yeah, at the end of the day, as much as I like and respect Conway, I didn't entirely get his gripe here. It just seemed like a super delayed reaction to old talking points from the mid 2000s that honestly some gatekeepers would have. And it's funny that he's going at Flex, who is the older head here and the quote unquote gatekeeper. But maybe Conway didn't clearly articulate what he wanted either. And yeah, I did see Funkmaster Flex's responses. He took some petty shots. Couple comments were, low blows that I don't think he needed to have included, but you know what? Funkmaster Flex has proven himself to be petty. However, there was still some truth to what he had to say, whether you love it or not. But those are just my thoughts on this issue. Make sure to hit that like button and please subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comment section what you think about this issue. It's your boy Mixtape Moth. I'm signing out. It's peace and blessings. One.